Hello, creatures. I'm making music today. I need to get my creative juices flowing again. For the past couple months, I've been playing a game called Darkwood. It's a survival horror game with a top-down view, and it's quite a bit challenging. In this game, you have to go out into the woods and find items for things like weapons, things to help you shelter, and you have to hide and hope you don't die. And the game is very atmospheric, it's very interesting, it's very challenging, but beyond the gameplay, the atmosphere, the challenge, one of the great things about the game Darkwood is the music. The music is very dark, it's very cinematic, it's very ambient, but it's also very intimate, particularly the theme that plays whenever you wake up in the morning in the hideout. And this theme not only plays with a sense of loneliness, but a sense of closeness, sense of familiarity with the very soft piano playing and some strings underneath that, whereas a lot of the rest of the score can get very weird and very alien-like and unfriendly. And it's just a very interesting mix of sounds for this soundtrack. I've been playing it so much that I was kind of inspired to do a track very similar to the stuff that you would hear in Darkwood, and this is my Darkwood-inspired track. Now, the piece that I'm kind of interested in trying to do is going to be similar to that song that plays in the morning in the hideout. So I have, in my instrumentation here, I have a piano, 3 question marks. Reason for that is because the piano that I've chosen right now is actually from a sample of a piano that I recorded way back when at my my folks' house, and I put into Novum, and it made this sound. And it's a sound I like, but I'm not sure if that's going to be right. It depends on if I use it and if I actually like it. And down here I have low strings, low something. This is going to be something like a textural or drone type of sound. And higher strings, so it's going to be mid, high, something like that. And then I was thinking of adding a bit of a texture and maybe a bit of a drone, something a bit more synthetic and less acoustic, right? And then down here I've got some booms, some percussive booms. I might add some actual percussion later, maybe, but it depends on how I feel about this. So let's get going. All right, let's try something. Okay, I think I made a couple mistakes there, but I can fix that in post. Okay, made some edits to the recording that I already made for the piano. For the second sound, the low strings, I have 2 instances of Peteris Vasks strings, 2 different articulations for cello. If you could barely hear it, that's because the library is really quiet. which is one of the other reasons why I have two sounds playing at once for this. And so for this, I'm just going to have it be kind of the backdrop for what I have for the piano. Hopefully it doesn't conflict too much because I do have low notes in the piano, but I mean, I could remove those later. I could just use the low strings for that part. So, let's see what we've got. Honestly, the playing could have been better. Oh well. Alright, so what I did now is I actually took the low notes from the piano recording and duplicated them down here in case I wanted to add them back. And I got rid of them in the main track so that I just have the low strings accompanying the piano part right here. And that so far sounds like this. I'll just play a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to have to mix with the levels between those instruments, of course, because the piano is a little bit quiet compared to the cello, but that's fine for right now. You can always change that later. All right, for the next sound, I had a little bit of difficulty trying to find something that would work, but I stumbled upon a sound from Salu called Forest Spirits, and that sounds a bit like this. It's a very grainy sound, but it also has a bit of low end, which I actually EQ'd out just a little bit of it because I don't want it to conflict too much with the strings in that part, but I think some of the higher end stuff might conflict with it, so I might have to fix this in the end, but let's record with this. Okay. With this one, I might have to revisit that because some of these lower notes at the start, I didn't really seem to hear them that much until I got here. So this might actually work for a different type of sound. The next sound that I'm using for the high strings is the string quartet from a library called Salu, and I'm using the irregular repetitions. Now, this articulation is interesting because it has, as it sounds like, irregular repetition. So the bow is going across the strings multiple times, but I've also added a bit of delay and reverb to make it sound just a little bit more dreamlike and ethereal, because without those, without those, it sounds like this. Oh, actually, that could work too if I wanted this to be a bit more of a dry, more close, more intimate sound. I don't need the delay or reverb on there at all, but for right now, let's have those on and see what we can do with this. Yeah, something like that. So, what I took care of is I changed some things around. I actually shortened some of the regions of the high strings so that they weren't just completely playing all the way through, because the delay does make the sound a bit longer. So I wanted it a little bit more sectional, so I took care of that. And for the next sound, I'm going to go with another sound from Salu called Grainy Mist, and this is going to be my texture sound. And I'm not sure yet how I want to use this, if I want it to be sort of an underscoring for the whole track or for different parts of it, kind of like what I did with the strings here. So let's fiddle around with that and see what we can make of this sound. I kind of don't have any issues with that. It was a little bit haphazard with the playing, but underneath everything, the very hissy kind of noisy part of that sound kind of comes through the most, and that's kind of what I want for whatever this texture is supposed to be. I think that's fine for right now. I might change it later, but for right now, let's move on to the drone. Okay, 2 sounds to go, and the next sound is a drone kind of brassy sound, and I'm going to use lower notes on this because in the Darkwood soundtrack, there's a lot of that for many of the tracks. There are lower notes that kind of just go brrr, and I wanted that to be what this sound is, and so I have another Novum sound. That's quite loud already. It's because I have a little bit of fold-back distortion on it. Yeah, some fold-back distortion on that. And I have, in this sound, aftertouch affecting the filter and the drive within the sound in Novum itself. So it gives that sound whenever I push the key harder. And then the mod wheel actually changes the timbre and pitches some of the sounds up. So all in all, there's like 4 sounds that you could get from this one patch. And so that's what I'm gonna use. We're starting over. From here. From here. Okay, so what I decided on in the end is that the drone was going to be the last part of it. I couldn't find a way to get the booms that I originally had here or any other form of percussion to fit with what I had right here. That might change in the future, I don't know. But right now I have the 2 drone sounds, and the second one is actually Neuphonium, and it's basic sort of low synth bass sound. I've got the mod wheel assigned to the filter cutoff so that it can get brighter as the sound goes on, if I wanted it to. And so right now it's kind of helping to bolster some of the lower frequencies with the drone, because for some reason this drone, and I think it's because of the actual waveform that I have that's being granulated, doesn't have a lot of fundamental frequencies in them, except for like 2 sounds. And so to kind of fill in that spot and actually have it be bassy instead of it be sort of low mid, where before it was kind of losing some of those, or excuse me, it's kind of losing those frequencies with the rest of the piece. And so I have the second sound kind of filling in that gap. There. So now I'm going to revisit the piano and see if I can fix this, because it sounds a little bit too heavy with the reverb, personally. That's how I feel. Alright, so I finished making those changes, and what I did was I took out a little bit of the reverb. There's still some of it there. The rest of that reverb type effect that you hear is actually just the granular synth granulating the sample. I also added a little bit of a filter because there's some repetitions in the sample. Hear it sort of going. And so I didn't want that to be as pronounced. And so those are the changes. Here's what the overall piece sounds like from the beginning. And that's the piece. Now, this may not be perfect, but I think overall what I wanted to get across, what I wanted to explore with this track is the sense of isolation, because you are, for the most part, alone in this game. There are other humans in the game, but they're not always friendly, and they're quite far apart from the different regions that you can go in. I also wanted to play with the idea of false senses of security with this by having a sound that is a bit familiar and a bit nice for us to listen to, like a piano, but to, instead of playing something nice to listen to like a major scale, I'm going with more minor, with a minor 6. I also used a sample of a piano that is much older than, say, one of the other professional sample libraries can kind of give you. The sample was a sound that, as I mentioned before, I recorded from a very, very old piano a long time ago over at my folks' house. And it's actually a recording of one of the higher notes, I think either C6 or C7, that I pitched all the way down, which is why it sounds a little weird like that, especially with the lower notes having a little bit of delay at the beginning before the note actually starts. This also gives a sense of age, because these woods have been around for a long time, and the people who are still here have survived for a long time, but there seems to be no end in sight, so this is what we're stuck with. As for the rest of the sounds, I kind of just wanted something to really support the main piano part, as well as give a little bit of texture with this, and to kind of accentuate different parts of the song with these drone swells. Right. And this sound also kind of offsets the familiarity that we have with the piano sound by giving something that sounds completely unreal, because it is unreal, it's synthetic. And that kind of sound kind of emphasizes the sense of danger that you have in these dark woods areas, with all of the monsters and all the traps and all the things that could get you that are kind of unreal and dangerous. This, I don't think I used this for anything. Yep, I think I just kept it there. So yeah, that is my piece, and that's my approach to it, to doing something that I think would fit in a game like Darkwood. Very dark, very cinematic, atmospheric, and ambient. And yeah, that is the track. That is the video. Let me know if you liked it, if you didn't like it, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, and I'll see you in some other video some other day. Have yourselves a good night. Bye-bye.